Bishop!
Hey guys, and welcome back to the final episode of my Aliens Universe background story. After the last episode, we discovered why the Xyz wanted to wipe out the humans and why the attack on Earth never happened. We now pick back up with the story with David. After the events of Alien Covenant, David leaves Paradise on the Covenant ship with his facehugger embryos and a ship full of colonists and human embryos. In the Alien Covenant prologue, The Crossing, he had learned of the engineers, the Xyz, the protomorphs, and some info on the alphas while in the engineer derelict during the trip from LV-223 to Paradise. Upon leaving Paradise, David takes the Covenant to the engineer base where the alpha derelict was stored by the engineers, figuring one more link up the chain of creators that he should learn about. On top of this, David knows just how similar the engineers and humans were. He's already wiped out one engineer base and plans to take on the humans. He can only wonder if these alphas behave any better or if they need extermination just like their children do. We pick back up with David finally arriving at the engineer base. He lands a few miles out from the small engineer outpost and quickly opens a cargo hatch, unleashing a wave of his proto-xenomorphs on the engineer base. The engineers had already dispatched a security team out to investigate the landing ship, but they were no match for the alien horde. David then moves the colonists from the Covenant onto the Alpha derelict and begins experimenting on them, using what he learned from the Alphas and engineers in order to make his own version of the alien that we eventually saw in Covenant. He also used what he learned from creating the Neomorphs and Proto-Xenomorphs during the Covenant's mission and created many different versions of the alien, planning to return to Earth in order to destroy it. Using female eggs and embryos, he was able to fill each section with different types of alien creatures born out of the catalyst substance. Just imagine what other alien creatures still lay dormant on that ship of death. On top of this, David had notified Weyland-Yutani after the Covenant events that he was working on a queen alien to help spread the creatures throughout the galaxy. We know this from the Alien Covenant short film, The Advent. Eventually, he was successful after much testing, using the body and reproductive organs from Daniels and other colonists. So with Ridley Scott saying David created the xenomorph, in a sense he did. The true xenomorph like we know from in the movies needs a human for the host, and David was the first to do that. If you want to get technical though, the goo is ancient and no one knows where it came from, but that it's easily modified and most outcomes are death. We also know that the alpha protomorph came before David's proto-Xenos and Neos, and the same can be said of the Deacon and Prometheus. Earth had already unknowingly survived one attack by the Xeno engineers, and now the planet's at risk again with David planning to return to Earth. He finally has his queen, and he's decided that it was time to strike the humans. David is prepping the Alpha derelict to take off for Earth when a cloaked vessel shows up. David has not had any contact with the Yautja, and most likely has no knowledge of them, but we all know of their cloaking technologies. The ship lands unnoticed, and two aliens exit quietly and sneak into the hangar for the Alpha derelict. Just then, a cloaked image suddenly appears before David, and he notices, tilting his head to one side. The blurred cloak then drops, revealing an Alpha using modified Predator tech. It just looks at David, pauses for a second, and then rips him in half, Alien Queen and Bishop style. David's upper torso is thrown to the floor and is now looking up, asking the Alpha why they play the role of the gods. The Alpha replies back in an early human dialect that David could understand. We can. Then 3 red dots appear on the android's face, and the Alpha's shoulder cannon lights up, destroying the top half of David. The other Alpha leaves in the ship they arrived in. The remaining Alpha quickly grows his suit and joins with the stolen Alpha derelict, now full with David's alien cargo, and blasts off for an unknown destination. We don't know where he's heading, but we do know where he ends up, because while in flight, he is attacked by a facehugger that was set loose when David attacked the base. It impregnates the Alpha, knocking it unconscious. Later, the pilot awakens to find the dead facehugger. The doomed Alpha has no idea what horror is growing inside of it. Yet a short time later, the alien begins to stir in his chest. The Alpha knows he's in trouble, so he sets down on the closest place, a nearby moon. Once landed, he sets off a warning beacon to let anyone know in the area of his dangerous cargo. But unfortunately for the Alpha, he dies right after turning on the beacon when the alien inside his chest bursts free. This alien would be known as an Alphamorph, the most terrifying alien Xeno yet, a 12-foot tall, lightning-fast Alpha Xenomorph hybrid. The crew of the Nostromo would of course later find this ship, but luckily for them, this Alphamorph was either dead by then, or perhaps it's still there, sleeping and waiting to be found. This leads us into the events of Alien and Aliens. The Predators almost died off as a species after the war with the Alphas. They lost much of their tech and their culture. Those left have resorted to the old ways, back to a time when hunting was the center of their world. These survivors would then form the clans that currently rule the different areas of Yatja Prime. The hunt is the priority now. Honor is the goal, not exploration. They still have relics of their old tech, as well as some of the old alien tech that they had acquired over the centuries. They still have the scientists and thinkers on the homeworld, but they are merely allowed to exist in order to support the hunters. Who knows if they will ever decide to step out of their hunting ways and return to the species they once were, but they do continue to grow in size. Now for the Alphas, they're gone for the most part, at least from this section of space. This wasn't the true homeworld of the Alphas. It was only their home in this region. The last Alpha contact was from the two that killed David, and there's been none seen since. The engineers lost their homeworld to the Yatja attack, and they lost an outpost to David. But the Weyland-Yutani records still speculate that there are survivors out there somewhere, along with the Xeno engineers. We pick back up with the explosion on LV-426 after the events of Aliens. A nearby unknown large vessel appears, perhaps using some kind of advanced cloaking tech. It would appear that the crew of this ship was able to see the blast from the exploding atmosphere processing station on Acheron, and that they have opted to take a closer look. A small scout team of Yatja is deployed to the moon, where they come face to face with the Xenomorphs. They haven't seen anything like this since the Alpha Protomorph attacks in the Great War. The scout team engages the aliens, and more Predator dropships deploy to the moon's surface. In the midst of all the chaos, a second, larger group of even more experienced Colonial Marines have landed to investigate what happened to the Colonial Marines from the Sulaco mission. And this is how I would set up AVP in this universe. In the Aliens Extended Universe, there were follow-up missions to LV-426 after Aliens, so I thought this would be a great place to not only have the aliens and Predators get reacquainted in a new form, but to involve tons of better trained, armed Colonial Marines as well. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed my story on the Alphas and the Predators in the Alien franchise. I hope you guys had as much fun watching this as I did making it. If you have any questions or comments, let me know down below. And as always, take care, and I hope to see you next time.